I'd like to thank the vBrownbag guys for allowing us to sponsor, and great to be here today. We'll be talking about Zerto virtual replication, what's new in the 3.0 version. And what I want to do is show you sort of the evolution of the product, but then also give you a very succinct but in-depth demo of what all actually is new in the product. So I'd like to do a quick reminder. If you were here at the show, go ahead and stop by booth 629, because a lot of the stuff that I'll be covering will be a bit in summary mode on some of the slides. So if you want a more in-depth detail, if you want a trial, if you want to run it yourself as an NFR, if you're a blogger or whatever, then we're happy to accommodate. Also, after the show, go ahead and go to Zerto.com. We'll have a lot of interesting information there for you, as well as these demos that I'll be showing you. We'll be adding some narrative to it and for your use. All right, so the agenda for today is we're going to look at the evolution of Zerto virtual replication, and then we're going to talk about the enhancements of the product, and then we'll get straight away into the demo. Okay, so in 2011, that's a long time ago, Zerto Virtual Replication 1.0 was released, and we really sort of were a groundbreaking type product because of the hypervisor-based virtual layer of replication that we do. And it really was embraced very quickly by enterprises. So in this first iteration of it, in fact, it won Best of Show here at VMworld that year. So right out of the gate, it was a product that was really embraced for its revolutionary way of doing disaster recovery and replication. Just a year ago, which is coincidentally my anniversary at Zerto, so my first week was VMworld, and we introduced version 2.0. Now what that version focused on was taking the virtual replication and automation of workflows for failovers to another step. It actually included multi-tenancy capability. So we, at that point, started getting a lot of interest and a lot of adoption from cloud service providers, because we solved a core problem that they've always had, which was trying to match up similar hardware between their customers and their cloud site. And that's a very difficult problem to solve, and we solve it very eloquently, just the way virtualization solves your problems inside your data center. So this week we introduced Zerto Virtual Replication 3.0. Now 3.0 is really building on those core successes between versions 1 and 2, and it gets into expanding out the options for IT managers and also the cloud providers themselves. And what we mean by that is we're adding in the necessary parts in order for a very geographically distributed and a very large deployment of disaster recovery, either from an enterprise that just happens to be global, or from a cloud service provider that wants to be able to provide disaster recovery services to customers that may follow them all over the world. Now, because of the features that we have, we are giving options to IT managers that they never had before. So just in 2 years, your options for how do you solve your disaster recovery problem are dramatically different. And so with version 3.0, we add in single vCenter support. So if you're an IT manager and you've got only one data center, one vCenter, then you're able to still have a DR solution. Maybe you have some remote satellite sites that need supported. You can do that with Zerto 3.0. Maybe you have the traditional layout of 2 data centers with the enterprise deployment. Then of course that would fit very largely into our standard multi-tenant or a single tenant type of solution. If you're a bit bigger, you may already have an internal cloud. So a lot of the 3.0 components you may find very useful because they are taking the position from a cloud service provider's perspective to a tenant, basically. But it also opens you up to this new ecosystem that's being built. Zerto has a lot of cloud service provider partners, and they're running Zerto, and they are able to maybe give you an option that you hadn't had before, which was perhaps you've got some sites geographically that you really need DR for, and a cloud service provider happens to have geographically a correct location that really makes sense for you, then you're able to use some hybrid approach to your DR solution. The reason this is possible is because starting at version 1.0, we have kept it very simple as far as what you need as far as components go. You use your basic VMware infrastructure, and then we just add in some necessary components. A Zerto virtual manager that talks to vCenter server, and then it deploys appliances to each of the hosts, and the hosts do the replication, and we can do some very powerful things with this very simple layout. We do near continuous data protection, essentially, between the sites to where your RPOs are very low, your RTOs are very, very low as well. We have customers that know exactly what their RTO is. They'll know it's going to be maybe 30 minutes total for a data center failover. In fact, we know that for sure because when we talk to them, that's one of the things they love about the non-disruptive testing, where they can test it, and there's no wait time for a data sync from the storage between the source site and the target site. Once we have the sites paired and we have the infrastructure in place, we have a concept called the Virtual Protection Group. And the Virtual Protection Group essentially is exactly what you'd love to be able to do, which is pick out the VMs you want protected, put them into a logical gathering of hierarchy, maybe you need a certain boot order or whatever, and then replicate them. So that is the core 1.0 feature set that we're building on. Now if we take this slide, this really shows us how we can add just a few essential elements and grow this out to not only multi-tenancy, but using the same infrastructure to accomplish very powerful things. So if we look at the source side there, the provider site 1 and the provider site 2, then we've got the Zerto Virtual Manager, the VMs at the source site and the target site between the provider 1 and provider 2. And we've got our VRAs down at the host level. And then at the bottom here, we have, oops, go back a bit. At the bottom, we have customers coming in. And the only element we added on version 2.0 to enable that multi-tenancy was what we call the Zerto Cloud Connectors. So the Cloud Connectors allow us to have a multi-tenant solution, regardless if you're running vCloud Director or vCenter. So the other element that we added for 3.0, a couple of them, is the self-service portal, which allows you to have a prepackaged self-service portal that goes into maybe your existing portal, and it gives you the DR functionality that your customers would like to have. And then we've added in the Zerto Cloud Manager. Now let's look at the technology enhancements here. We've got the single vCenter support. We've improved our workflows for end-user acceptance recovery, and what we mean by that is we're highlighting some really powerful capability to where you can actually do complex things such as automatically roll back a failover if the end-user acceptance is not acceptable within a specified period of time. We'll automatically roll that back. So there's very powerful workflows in there. We've enhanced our reporting. It really goes to address a lot of what the feedback was from cloud service providers, for example. Much more details as far as audit, planning for your resources, when capacity planning, essentially. So I know from my disaster recovery, I'm protecting X amount of machines, and our report gives you that you're using so much RAM, so much storage, and so much CPU to where you can do some capacity planning. Then everything in 3.0 is also manageable from the web. So it's all browser-based. In fact, the demos I'll be showing you here in just a second it's all done through a browser UI. Now from the cloud enablement, what we want to do is build on that multi-tenancy capability to make the management easier. So that's what the Zerto Cloud Manager does. It's specifically built to manage the Zerto virtual DR infrastructure. It's not a replacement for vCloud Direct or anything like that. It's an enhancement to it because we integrate tightly with it, and you'll see that in the demos. And then we're starting with the capability that you will want as a service provider to get much more of a self-service position. So we're starting down that path with service profiles. Essentially, you can set the alerting for your RPOs and RTOs and things of that nature with service profiles. And then the controlled access for customers. We'll give them that self-service portal where you don't have to create it on your own. Okay. The reporting, again, the audit reports, the recovery reports, and the performance charts have all been enhanced. So let's get to the demo here. What we're going to do in the demo is the layout is I've got a cloud provider site. They've got 2 data centers. They've got in-cloud DR, and they've got 2 cloud DRs. So they've got a couple customers coming in as DR as a service, and then they've got some customers that are doing completely in-cloud hosted, and they have the ability to fail over from one data center to the other. All right, so the second part of this is the self-service portal. So it's the web-based portal, and it's a limited customer interface to where they can do things such as create those virtual protection groups, perform tests, and do failovers. So let's pop out of this and go to the demo. I'm using, how do you navigate this? Oh, great. Oh, okay, great, thanks.
We need to switch it to the secondary screen. Take it across to the right.
To the right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We're just getting set up here.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, let's start this. So this is, the first thing we're going to do is connect the cloud provider data centers to the Zerto Cloud Manager. So I'm going to log into the Zerto Cloud Manager. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the sites, which these are the cloud provider sites. I've got 3 of them, primary, secondary, and a third DC. All you have to do is add a site, put in the IP address of the data center from your service provider that you want your customers to use. The next thing is a service profile. This is that template I talked about. So we've got different service levels, the different tiers. So I'm going to create a bronze tier here. I've got a gold tier, I've got a silver tier of service to where they get a certain amount of RPO alert and the journal history, for example. Instead of going back 5 days, maybe they just need 24 hours. In this one, we're going to 2 hour because it's bronze, but it could be a lot more. As you see, the customization here is quite robust. And this is actually, when you create the virtual protection group, these are the settings you have to do per VPG. What we're doing is really automating this from a self-service standpoint to where you set this and you allow your customers to either pick a profile or you decide what profile they get. The next thing we're going to do is actually connect the customer sites using a Zorg, is what we call it, a Zerto organization. We're going to create a Zorg called Customer 2, and we're going to give it a CRM ID. So now we have the Customer 2 created, and I want to do a workflow here, and I want to give them certain permissions of what they can do in accessing the cloud resources. Maybe they manage the machines. Maybe they can perform failover testing, live failovers. Now I'm going to allocate some vCenter resources to them. Now I've got 2 different DCs that I'm going to allocate resources from as a cloud provider to this customer. So the first one's going to be just vCenter resources. So if you notice, it looks very familiar with a data store. I'm going to put them in a certain resource pool, and then I'm going to give them a test network and a virtual machine network. And there we have it. Next thing I'm going to do is give them vCloud Director resources. And that's coming from my third DC. So my vCloud Director resources are from my primary data center. So I select the org VDC I want them to have. And now I've allocated the resources, I've set the permissions, I've created that customer as a cloud provider. Now I want to connect the customer sites to my Zerto Cloud Manager to where they can get their permissions, where they can use the service profiles. So first thing I'm going to do is connect them to the primary DC. The primary DC, I'm going to put in these are the cloud connectors I showed you in the diagram. That gives us that multi-tenancy capability. All right, save that. Now I'm going to connect the customer to my third DC, which that was the one with the vCenter resources. So in this case, the customer could be coming from the same location, or the customer could be following me around the globe, and these are a couple of my DCs that I'm allocating resources to them to. This is all done centrally. So as a cloud provider, you are starting to consolidate your view and your management of distributed customers using this Zerto Cloud Manager. All right, we're going to let those cloud connectors deploy. And they're almost done. Now we're going to pair the customer to those two cloud data centers. I've got the resources allocated to them. I'm going to go to the customer side. This is all done through the browser. Now I'm going to pair my sites. So I'm going to pair this customer to the primary DC first and then the third DC. Once I have all these paired, then I'm able to create VPGs that can go either to the primary or the third data center. Let's pair that one. So that gets me to the primary, and now I'm going to go add in the third site, third data center. Notice in the background there's a stoplight that turns green once the connections are made. All right, now I'm connected. So this is going to show that I'm connected to multiple peers now. And now I can create a VPG and replicate it to the primary DC into an allocated org VDC. So this is going to go to vCloud Director in the primary site to an org VDC. You notice the profile there. I don't have to fill out all that information because it's leveraging those service profiles. So I'll just leave that, and then I'll pick the target org VDC that is the one that's been allocated for this customer. I'm going to allow them to do guest customization, or I could not, regardless, regarding whichever way I want them to be able to do it. I'm going to add in a virtual machine. Now, this could be a lot of virtual machines, so I'm just using one here. And I can put them into boot order. I can customize their configuration. I can pre-seed those VMDKs if there's large amounts of data to go there. And so now it's creating that VPG for the primary site from the second customer going to an org VDC in vCloud Director. See the little symbols there? That's vCenter to vCloud Director. Now, let's pop over and create a VPG to replicate to that third data center. Remember this one was allocated as vCenter resources. I'm still using the service profiles though. I'm using a resource pool, and I'm picking out vCenter resources that I had allocated in my Zerto organization in the Zerto Cloud Manager. So I'm picking out another VM to go into the VPG that's going to my third data center. So I save that, and notice the tabbed view there, the new UI, to where I can pop back and forth, and see the the two different locations and their status. Now I'm going to pop over to the primary DC and see what this all looks like from that administrator's point of view. I see an initial sync happening from customer 2 to my primary DC. Now if I go to my third DC in the browser UI, I'll see, hey, I've got customer 2 coming in and doing an initial sync. This is all done because I've allowed them to create VPGs. Now back over at the customer 2 site, the initial sync's happening. So through the power of time-lapse photography, we'll let this sync go a little bit faster than it normally would. It's protecting now. So now we're in a protecting state on both of my VPGs, one to the primary and one to the third DC. Now what I'm able to do is perform failovers. This first one is showing going to the primary DC and its depth of integration with vCloud Director. I'm going to choose the latest checkpoint. Remember, this could be back up to 5 days if I wanted it to be. So here's my failover test. And I see the status of the test up here. It's started. And then I'm going to, once that goes, I'm going to pop over to vCloud Director into the org VDC and see what's happening. So nothing. And now I start seeing a VM be populated into that org VDC because I'm running the test. It's almost done. Now, the VM's starting up as we see. And the test is ready to check out. Now the VM's up and running. And we see that from the primary DC as well. That's the vCenter view, essentially. Now I'm going to stop the test because it was a rousing success. All right. And then we'll watch it clean it up. So that triggers an automatic cleanup workflow. And we'll watch it. It's showing us clean up. A couple of refreshes on the org VDC. And we see the VM's not there now because the test is complete and we did everything we wanted to. All right, we see we're back into a protected state. So this is an in-cloud failover using the self-service portal. This is that primary data center to the second data center. It's VDC to VDC, and it's a customer that's coming in through a service portal for in-cloud disaster recovery. So I'm going to initiate a failover. You notice the little cloud logo up there at the top left. That's customizable to your organization. I'm going to start the failover. Again, this is VDC to VDC using the Zerto self-service portal from a customer's point of view. So now, in this case, we've already got a VM there that's my DNS and Active Directory, and we notice the new one just popped up. So, see, it's up and running. And we look from the customer point of view through the Zerto self-service portal. It's up and ready to be tested. So if I click on it, it pops up. It's a real VM. It's booting up, looks like. Now I'm going to stop the test because it was happy. And there we go. All right, so now it's going to do the cleanup. we'll pop back over to the org VDC, and we'll see the machine shut down. There it goes, and go away. So nice and clean. So this is through the Zerto self-service portal. There's my VPGs protected again. So I just want to switch back. How do I do it? How do I get?
The slides. Yep. Just the ones next to the minus.
This. Okay, I'm switching back over to the slides here. Thank you. All right, so to wrap this up, I'd mentioned at the beginning the options that an IT manager has now are very robust. I showed you anywhere from a very simple deployment of a single vCenter all the way through using cloud service or your own enterprise service cloud. And the capability that you have now that you didn't have 2 years ago. So come by the Zerto booth, check it out, and also go to Zerto.com, check us out, and we'll be glad to give you a demo, a trial. The installation of this normally takes about an hour or so through a WebEx, so it's not very, it doesn't take very long to get it up and rolling. So I'd like to thank you guys. Hopefully this was informational, and glad to be here, and hope everybody has a great show.